Hello and welcome back to this tutorial. In this video, we are going to be looking at how to use return statements in your Python program. So now, what is a return statement? So now we have a function here and we have defined a couple of functions. So now this function is simply adding x and y, right? So, and is storing it in this variable result. Now, if for instance, you want to get the value of this variable and you want to return it to the global namespace, maybe you want to use it in the rest of your programs a couple of times or even another time, maybe once. And remember, we already stated that the variables that you set in function stays within the function, right? Outside this function, Python will no longer access it unless you are using it within the function. Python can print it for you. So if we call this function now, these two print statements are going to execute. So if we run it, we have our two print statements because you are calling the function. Now, if for instance, I want to use this value here, so and probably I want to store it in another variable. So I'm going to store this value to another result variable and I'm going to set it to that function. That is the effect of that function. So I'm going to clear this. Now, if I run this, of course, we are going to get these two print statements back because this multiply is here, right? And it is the multiply is printing two items. But now we have stored this, the effect of whatever happens here, that is the multiplication, we have stored it in another variable result. So for now, I'm going to remove this print statement and I've set results to be, well, that's multiply, right? So remember, here we are not returning anything. And on a normal day, you presume that after Python multiplies these two, that the result is the multiplication that happens here. So, and then I'm going to print the result. I'm going to print result, but this time around, remember that the result you are printing is this result that we set here, not the result that is here, because from this global namespace, Python has no access to this result. So I'm going to run this. So you now see that this print statement is telling us that the result of this multiplication here is none. There is no result. Okay. So now what can we do to remedy this? And we want to store the result of this particular function to a global result, right? So how do we want to do it? We can just simply come here and write one line of code that says return result. Sorry. So return result. So now we have told Python, please, whatever be the result of what you did here, please return this result. And by return, we are telling Python to hold this value, keep it safe as the product of this function, as the effect of this function, right? So now that my result variable outside here, so I can call it something else so that it will not confuse you. Result of, so that the result will not forgive you, of multiply is that. So now I'm going to print that result of multiply. And so remember we had printed this before. The only thing that happened now is that we changed the name of the variable. So now I'm going to print this again, and now we have our 10. So what we are returning here now is result, and now this result is 10, and now we have 10 printed for you. Okay, so that is the basic use of return statements. So return statements is used to send the effect or the product of a particular function back to the global namespace. So that when you want to use it in the program, probably like store it in a variable or store it to a database or reuse it in any way that you want to, you can have access to it, right? So now you may ask me that can you return two items? And yes, you can. So I can say that I want to return this. I want to return result, and result is simply the multiplication that we carried out here. So instead of returning result, I can decide to enter this directly. So I can say that I want to return x multiplied by y, and then I'm also going to return x plus y, and comma, I'm also going to return x minus y. So x minus y. So as you can see, I'm returning three expressions, three calculations that the function can carry out for us. So I'm writing all of them out in the return statement, and Python is going to do all of this and send it back, right? So that wherever the function is called, this function will be able to produce all of this. So now if I run this, I have a tuple of 10, 7, and 3. So when you are returning multiple items, Python is going to store that return value to a tuple, right? And if I say that I want to access the first thing that the Python returned, so we know how to index a tuple. So now we have only 10, right? So I hope this is very clear. So another thing we can do is I can assign the multiple return of this function to multiple variables. So we can assign the first return to prod, the second one to add, and the third one to difference. And if you come here and print them individually, here you have prod, and maybe that was supposed to be sum, but okay, add, and then the other one we have difference. So now if I print this, so we can see the return values, the three return values printed individually for us. Now I'm going to create another function, and this time around I'm going to use if statement to initiate two different return values. So I'm going to create another variable here, maybe so I'm going to create another function here. So I'm going to define the function, and I'm going to call it check underscore values, and I'm going to close the function header and this. Okay, so check underscore values, that together. So here I'm going to pass in the parameters that I will need. So I'm going to be needing two numbers, a and b. And here I'm going to write my if statement. So I'm going to say if a is greater than b, what do I want to do? I want to return a string that says, well, a is greater. A is greater. And then else, that is, if b is greater. So I don't want to check the condition again because there are only two numbers and only one can be greater. So else I'm going to return another string. So we add our colon. So I'm going to return another string that says that b is greater. So now I'm going to call the function here, check values, and then I'm going to pass in two numbers. So I'm going to pass in maybe 20. So 20 is going to be an RA, and then I'll pass in 30, and I'm going to store it in a variable. So, and I'm going to call that variable maybe result, and I'll set it to that. So this time I'm going to print result. So if we save this and run, we have our b is greater. So Python is returning one statement for us. Okay. So, and if I switch the positions, or if I use keyword arguments to say that b is equals that and a equals this, I hope you understand what is happening. So I want to switch the positions of a and b by simply using keyword arguments to indicate which one is b and which one is a. So, and I'm going to clear this, and this time around I'm going to run. So we have a is greater. All right. So now this is a typical way we can return different values. We can check conditions and return different values in a function. So now we can also have this and say that if a is greater than b, I could return a, right? I could return a, and I could return a string or a boolean value, right? I'm just showing you different ways you can do your thing. And then we can here again come and return something else. So I'm going to return maybe a string, sorry, and I'm going to just say done. Okay. So now 30 and true, right? So that is if A is greater. So now I'm going to change this back and this. So now we have this as our B. So now I'm going to save this and run again. So now we have done. So this return statement here is now acting as the else block. So if this is not going to work, what Python is going to do is that it's going to return done. So if you do not have an else block, you can return something else directly on the function level, right? So these are the different ways you can use your return statements in Python. So I hope this is very clear and that you're not confused about it. So thank you so much for watching this video and see you in the next one.